Phillip Schofield, Narcissist, Part 5. We now move on, following his revelations about being a gay man, to Q-Gate. A petition to axe Phillip Schofield and Holly Willoughby from TV was launched after the presenting duo appeared to jump the queue to see the Queen's coffin last year. Schofield and Willoughby faced a barrage of abuse since they avoided the long line to Westminster Hall, the same day that David Beckham queued for 13 hours to go and pay his respects to the Queen. One talk TV host even branded Schofield a prat, and some Twitter users threatened to boycott this morning for what they branded despicable behaviour. Jumping a queue shows a lack of accountability for behaviour. It shows an absence of emotional empathy for the other people within the queue. Now, queue jumping of itself does not make somebody a narcissist, but it again demonstrates certain narcissistic indicators. However, this morning bosses took to social media to clarify why the presenting duo didn't queue to see the Queen's coffin. They didn't jump the queue, have VIP access or file past the Queen lying in state, the statement said, but instead they were there in a professional capacity as part of the world media to report on the event. Despite this, a petition was launched on change.org calling for Schofield and Willoughby to be axed from TV and for This Morning to be cancelled, branding the show damaging. Laura Harrison, who started the petition, wrote, "Thousands of people lined up overnight to pay respects to the Queen, where they would likely wait for up to 24 hours. Yet Holly Willoughby and Phillip Schofield, two hosts of one of the most damaging to mental health daytime TV shows This Morning, were able to push past those thousands to get immediate access. ITV should be ashamed of exploiting the situation. I'd like to see This Morning axed for good, as I do believe it causes more harm than good without people noticing. For example, like turning the cost of living anxiety into a game show. At least these toxic presenters should be finally removed from our TV screens they have monopolised for way too long." She added, "P.S. It doesn't matter about your feelings on the monarchy, it's about the TV show being toxic, and these presenters being given privileges that deprive others and humiliate their own viewers in the process, in the same way Jeremy Kyle's shows did." Now, I've spoken about Jeremy Kyle separately, and for this particular viewer, albeit it just being her opinion, to liken the show to his behaviour demonstrates that it might well be the case that you have a presenter, or both presenters, occupying well-paid privileged positions where they basically trade in the misery of others, which shows questionable moral judgment, possibly the absence of a moral compass, and questionable absence of emotional empathy. In the circumstances, the appearance of queue jumping did not go down well. This Morning sought to back up its presenters. But following on from this, rather than keeping quiet and just moving on and perhaps even offering an apology, Phillip Schofield at the time said he had nothing to apologise for with regards to the Q-Gate controversy. Now, even if it were true that he had nothing to apologise for, and it would appear actually that he had, but let us assume he had not, coming out with such an arrogant and dismissive statement is not particularly sensible and is demonstrative of his behaviours. The fact that he haughtily states, "I've nothing to apologise for," when dealing with something that's clearly upset people, shows an inability to read the situation also. One where it might have been better for him to say nothing, or to at least to apologise and say, "I understand why people feel upset. The correct position is this, but I realise nevertheless it did create the appearance that we had engaged in queue jumping, and I fully understand why people were upset with us." But instead, he's dismissive. He told GB News, "Why would I apologise? You've already seen that 700 other journalists did exactly the same thing." Dan Wooten Tonight's senior producer Ben Leo approached Schofield outside his home and said, "But those other journalists were accredited and you never actually filmed anything. Nothing was ever broadcast." Schofield replied, "We weren't allowed to film inside." Leo said, "I think the problem is that you were never accredited," to which the TV presenter replied, "We were." That may well have been a lie. Challenged that it was This Morning's editors' names on the list and not his own and Willoughby's, Schofield said, We didn't want to give our email addresses away. He then added, "You're a bit late on the story, mate." Schofield also said, "I think it's a shame that what happened happened." Asked if he felt that he and Willoughby were unfairly targeted, he said, "We were." This demonstrates that it would be apparent that he claims that they got accreditation, when actually it was the editors that had got it. And therefore what's happened is that he did seek to jump the queue using his status, showing a sense of entitlement, a lack of emotional empathy for the others in the queue, a lack of accountability for his behaviours, high-handedness and haughtiness, and then when caught out, suggests, well, we weren't in the wrong because we were there in a professional capacity, albeit, as that journalist has explained, he was not. And then he goes one further, doubling down on it, showing haughtiness and dismissiveness by saying, "I've got nothing to apologise for." And therefore, in the circumstances, this did not go down well. The footage of Schofield at Westminster Hall came as other celebrities queued patiently like the rest of the public. Former England captain David Beckham and Good Morning Britain presenter Susanna Reid were among the famous faces who waited several hours to see Queen Elizabeth II lying in state. Re-queued for over 7 hours and said it was worth every minute. Beckham said he felt compelled to queue for 12 hours, saying if his grandparents had been alive, they would have been there with him. Award-winning actor Tilda Swinton was also spotted, paying tribute to the late Queen. The Marvel star was seen filing past the coffin, having queued with other mourners. Reality star Sharon Osbourne made a pilgrimage to pay tribute to the late monarch, joining the queue and happily posing for photos with fans. Pop star James Blunt was also cited in the queue, as was Line of Duty actor Daniel Mays and Strictly Come Dancing professional Neil Jones, who queued with his partner, Love Island star China Mills, for 10 hours. Schofield recently stopped being the face of website We Buy Any Car, and his wine range had been removed from supermarket shelves, naturally a response to potentially people seeing him as a difficult individual that they no longer wanted to be associated with. This Queuegate, as it was known, did not do Schofield any favours. It demonstrated a high-handed attitude to try and jump the queue, and then when caught out, rather than show any form of contrition, instead, he tried to hide behind the suggestion that what he was doing was part of professional work, when it evidently wasn't. More narcissistic indicators stacking up, as evidenced on that occasion. We now move on, in the next part, to the material which has caused perhaps the most problem for Phillip Schofield in terms of his behaviour. His affair with a younger man. Join me in part 6 for that analysis.